الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد الصادق الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. So brothers and sisters, today, the session of today, we're going to talk about lessons from the Mecca time, the time of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam in Mecca, in the city of Mecca. So we've spoken about so many incidents, so many events in the life of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We started with the importance of learning Seerah, why we should learn about the Seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And I'm hoping, as I say all the time, we should reflect and ponder. Now, if you sit down with yourself and think about the first session, the importance of learning about the Seerah of Muhammad, and think about all the events, and just remember, brothers and sisters, we can never ever do justice to the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a few sessions, a few Jumu'ahs. We can never ever do justice to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's number one. And the incidents and the events we're talking about, we're just summarizing. We're just talking briefly about some of the major events and the major incidents. Because if we want to go in depth, in details, we will end up here for 5-10 years and we will not finish it. Believe it or not, this is not a joke. Honestly, I've seen scholars who they've been teaching the Seerah for 10 years and they haven't finished. 10 years, and they teach about 2 or 3 times a week. 2 or 3 times a week, and they haven't finished. Because we can never do justice to the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we're just talking briefly, hoping to take some lessons, hoping to revive our hearts, hoping to connect with Allah, to connect with His Messenger, and to connect with the religion of Allah, and more than that, to feel that we are honored to be Muslims today, to be from the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Excuse me. So, all the time, trying to go back to the first session when we talked about the importance of learning about Seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and think about everything that we've learned about so far, and think, wow, subhanallah, how does it change you as a person? Think about so much that we've learned about, and subhanallah, these are amazing stories. Subhanallah, look at the connection now. After you learn about Muhammad sallallahu, you feel more connection with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then we talked about, obviously, the relationship between the message of Muhammad sallallahu and the message of previous messengers. Arabia before Islam, Jahiliyyah time, the practices of Jahiliyyah, the status of women in Jahiliyyah, the characteristics of people of Jahiliyyah time, and how Islam came to change those people completely, and how Islam came to stop those Jahiliyyah practices, And then, Muhammad sallallahu, his early childhood and everything, what happened to him in the tribe of Banu Sa'd, his early childhood, the death of his mother Amina bint Wahb, and then his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, and then him being looked after by Abu Talib, his journey with Abu Talib to Asham, and then, when he's been told to send him back to Mecca, because if they find him, they will kill him being as a shepherd, working for Khadija, getting married to Khadija radiallahu anha, the best love story, which is the love story between Muhammad sallallahu and Khadija, and him showing his true love and his sincere love to Khadija even after she died, and how he was proud to announce to every human being out there, to say to them that I've been given the love of Khadija, I've been granted the love of Khadija, inni ruziqtu hubbaha. He was proud to announce that he loved Khadija radiallahu anha, and he appreciated Khadija radiallahu anha, and he was honest to Khadija radiallahu anha. And in the early stages of Islam, the stages of Islam, the da'wah was done privately at the beginning, and then after, da'wah was done publicly after the Islam of Hamza and Umar, and how the Muslims became stronger after the Islam of Hamza and Umar radiallahu anhum. And then we talked about, at the beginning, look, only a few Muslims, and then the numbers, they started growing after, and then the first migration to Abyssinia, to Al-Habasha, and then the second migration we spoke about, and then Amul Huzn, the year of sorrow, the death of Khadija and Abu Talib, and then the incidents of Ta'if, and then the Isra al-Mi'raj, all these incidents, because we need to remember that in the time of Mecca, there are a lot of events that happened in the life of Muhammad sallallahu, but it's not much information we have about Muhammad sallallahu as much as in the time of Medina, because in the time of Medina, more incidents, more events will take place. The same way that before he became a messenger, we haven't got much information about him like after he became the messenger, because people are observing him, now. They're watching him, they're recording what's happening. But before, because they don't know he's going to be the messenger. So now, as I said, so we've learned about the time in Mecca, and today is a lesson for evaluating the time of Mecca, taking the lessons and the principles of the time of Muhammad sallallahu his time in Mecca. So I've asked you a question earlier, but let me ask you another question. So what lessons do you think we could take with us from the time of Muhammad sallallahu in Mecca, from the Meccan time?
That's early Mecca.
The time in Mecca, generally. Yeah, before the Hijrah, yeah, before migration.
I think I'll go for is the perseverance, the sabr. But most importantly, he was already known as the Amin, Al-Amin.
Yeah, son.
The honesty. He was very sincere, and that's the main thing, you know.
Yes. Okay, mashallah, yeah. Any more?
I would say like the love of Allah in Makkah.
Love of Allah.
When Prophet Muhammad spreading the word of Allah, and so many believers like Bilal, who when he got the message and he believed in Allah, and then he was punished so badly, but the love of Allah, he wasn't feeling the pain, and then like Prophet Muhammad, he was so badly tortured by unbeliever, but he believed in Allah, and that belief and love helped him to spread the message. So that was amazing.
Okay, mashallah. Any more? Yeah.
Among every lessons, one of this lesson I particularly have found to be enormously for us to learn is that Islam is a religion which is based on justice and not on emotions. Because in the time of Makkah, when we used to be punished, or our Sahabas used to be punished, there were Sahabas, they wanted to wage war against the non-Muslims. So he said, not now, because Allah's order didn't came. That means that even though we are being punished, we have a tactics against the non-Muslims, and we cannot go by our emotions. We have to see by the orders of Allah and be patient, and do what is best for us to do at that situation.
Okay, mashallah, jazakallah khair. Bravo.
Just the integrity in the community in Makkah, in the times of Makkah. People weren't just converting and then waiting for something special to happen. They were changing their entire beliefs, but still keeping the integrity that they had in there. So if they were strong, like Umar, he was strong, but as an unbeliever, but when he became a Muslim, he still remained strong. So it's like, that integrity that they brought with them, and it just made that community, even though it was small, it was still strong. So.
Okay, mashallah. Any more?
I think one of the remarkable things is like the presence of Prophet himself among the Sahabas, right? I mean, we come here, and I say this to you and many other friends that I do not practice much, right? And I'm ashamed of it. And when patience and steadfastness came, and you see like the peer pressure, the peer influence, Prophet was among them, and this, against all, their belief was so strong, they did actually stood against the whole world. Yeah. And why it's not happening to me, I do not know, right? I could only see like the Prophet was there. They saw by themselves before their eyes what magical person, like a blessed person he is. And it worked for all of them, not only one, two.
Yeah.
Every time you give examples, they're all examples for us. I mean, that is just like unbelievable.
MashaAllah. Right, okay. So yeah, mashallah, the brothers, you've given good examples of the time in Mecca. So one of them, as the uncle said, is he was as-sadiqul amin, the trustworthy one, the truthful one. Okay? So that was one of the lessons that we learned from the time in Mecca. Why? Because number one, those who knew Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the Quraysh, they knew he was as-sadiqul amin, the trustworthy one, the truthful one, the honest one. All of them, they could say it. All of them. the ones who believed, the ones who didn't believe, they all say you are as-sadiqul amin, the trustworthy one, the truthful one. But look at the ones that Allah has guided them, and the ones who were listening to the words of Allah, and they followed the words of Allah, like Abu Bakr, for example, like the early Sahaba, immediately, because they knew that he's not a liar. He wouldn't make up something like this. Remember Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu in the incidents of Al-Isra and Mi'raj, when the Meccans, the Quraysh, they were saying, have you heard what your friend said happened to him last night? And you haven't met him by then. You haven't heard it from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly. But he said, if he said it, then it is the truth. I believe him. You haven't heard it from him. He said, if he said it, then it is the truth. I believe him. He said, I believe him when I'm sitting with him and Jibreel comes to him with revelation, and I don't even see Jibreel, and he says, Jibreel just came to me right now. Imagine Abu Bakr is sitting with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Jibreel comes to Muhammad, he gives him new revelation, and then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say to him, Jibreel just came to me and gave me these new ayat. And Abu Bakr will believe him immediately. He wouldn't say to him, I haven't seen Jibreel. Why did I see him with my own eyes like you've seen him? Why didn't I hear him? He doesn't, because he knew he is a trustworthy one, the truthful one. That's number one. Lesson number one. And what lessons can we take from that ourselves? Because now, as I said before, it's not just a sequence of events, but it's lessons and principles that we need to implement them in our lives and relate them to us. So number one, before we start preaching the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking to others about the deen of Allah, we have to be honest, trustworthy, truthful people. Before, see, someone who's calling to the deen of Allah, you have to be trustworthy and honest. That is one of the characteristics of a true believer. This is one of the characteristics of the true believers, is being honest and trustworthy and truthful. So this is very important, because imagine sometimes that someone who's trying to preach Islam to his own family. But imagine your wife or your kids, your daughter, your son, they see you as someone who is not trustworthy. They see you lying all the time, telling, bad stuff all the time, faking stuff all the time. How can they listen to you when you come to them and telling them about religion? How can they listen to you? How can they look up to you? They're not. Simple as that. So then you are being someone who is being an obstacle on the way of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to those people. Because they don't see the characteristics of true Muslims in you as a person. But Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had those characteristics before he speaks to them. His characteristics and his manners, they speak for themselves. That's number one. And remember, when he became the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Allah told him to go on and tell the Quraysh about Islam, when he told him وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and go and start calling those who are closer to you, O Muhammad, to the religion of Allah, when he started calling them from the mountain of As-Safa, and then he started calling wa sabaha, and all of them, they gathered around him, and then he said, if I tell you right now that there is an army coming to fight you from behind this mountain, coming to fight you right now, will you believe me? He said, yes, of course we'll believe you, because مَا عَهِدْنَا عَلَيْكَ كَذِبًا قَطْ. We've never heard you lie and tell a lie in your life before, even one lie. We never heard you tell one lie before in your life. You are as-sadiqul amin. You are the trustworthy one. You are the truthful one. But the minute he said to them, what about if I say to you that I am the messenger of Allah to you, then they didn't believe him. See? But all of them, they confirmed that you are as-sadiqul amin. You are the trustworthy, the honest one, the truthful one. All of them. So his manners, his characteristics, they speak for themselves. So that's lesson number one, is honesty, trustworthiness is very important, brothers and sisters. Very important. That is one of the lessons that we learn. So a Muslim, a believer, he has to fight himself all the time. He has to strive to get to the stage of being someone who is trustworthy, someone who is honest, someone who is truthful all the time. You have to get to that state. You have to get to that stage. You have to strive all the time. This is a true believer. Number two, he was dedicated to his mission in life. This is lesson number two. Because he had a vision and he had a mission in his life, which is calling to the religion of Allah, which is establishing the deen of Allah on this earth, which is Allah to be worshipped on this earth. So he had a mission and he dedicated his life for that mission. He dedicated his life for that mission. See, that is very important, because a lot of us today, a lot of Muslims today, they have no vision, they have no mission, they have no aims, no objectives in life. They don't know where they want to, where they're heading towards. They know nothing. They're just lost in this dunya. They're just flowing with the flow, following the crowd, and that's it. A Muslim, a true believer, one of the lessons that we learn from the Seerah, especially from the time in Mecca, you need to have a mission. You need to have a vision in life. You have to have aims and objectives in life. But the mission is big, is the bigger picture. And then under that, there is a vision, and there are aims and objectives. So aims and objectives could be long-term, short-term, mid-term, but there is the bigger one, which is the mission and the vision. And this is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to see. Because we should not forget, when we start learning about the time in Medina, we should not forget about the time in Mecca, so that we can reflect and ponder upon the time in Mecca, and then after the time in Medina, and we see the vision of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mission of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. See? Because as we're going to see after in Medina, because the focus in Mecca was building the Muslim personality, building the Muslim individual in Mecca. But in Medina, the focus will be different. The focus will be building the Muslim society. See? So first, you build the Muslim individual, the Muslim personality first, and then after, you start building the Muslim community and the Muslim society. And this is what should happen with us. You build the Muslim individuals, you build yourself, and then you build your family, so you build a Muslim family. So if each one of us focuses on his family to build a good Muslim family, so then the community will be a good place to live, will be a safer place to live, will be a happier place to live, the community, and then the wider society, and then the world, the universe, the earth. See? But this is how it will start. Because a lot of us today, a lot of the Muslims, unfortunately, a lot of the Muslims, they think, you know what? I'm only a person, come on. How can I change? I can't change everyone. I'm only a person. My family is only small numbers. So come on, man, you must be crazy thinking that we're going to change the whole thing. There's no way. No, but start with yourself. That's why Allah said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the state of a community until they change what is within themselves first. So change yourself first, and then think about others. But change yourself, change your family, and then think about community, society, the ummah, this, that. Then Imam Bukhari as an example, because it's important to give examples. Imam Bukhari, we all know the book of Sahih al-Bukhari, the most authentic book after the Quran is Sahih al-Bukhari. A lot of people today, and I'm sure that you've heard it, most of you, all of you heard it today, a lot of people, they criticize Sahih al-Bukhari. They try to make Muslims doubt Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and all that, and they start talking bad about Sahih al-Bukhari, about Imam Bukhari, criticizing Imam Bukhari. Because what they don't know, because a lot of people they think, well, if you say in the Quran is the words of Allah, the words of God, so Imam Bukhari, and you all say as Muslims that we are human beings, so we make mistakes. So Imam Bukhari, without doubt, he got mistakes in Sahih al-Bukhari, therefore not all the hadith are authentic in Sahih al-Bukhari. Logically speaking, you could believe that, logically speaking. Yeah, if you use your logic, then yes. But if you look into the criteria of collecting the ahadith and how Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, they were very strict. They were very strict in collecting the ahadith. He used to travel in a journey of 3 months and 6 months just to make sure that his only one hadith is authentic. Can you imagine a man who travels in a journey of 3 months or 6 months just to make sure that one hadith is authentic before he put that hadith in his book? Imam Bukhari, before he put any hadith in his book, he used to do istikhara. He used to do salatul istikhara. He used to do wudu, pray 2 rak'ahs, do istikhara, seek help from Allah and guidance from Allah to guide him that this hadith is authentic before he puts it in the book. Subhanallah. Imam Bukhari, when he was a student, he was young. He heard what urged him to go and seek knowledge and seek learn to specialize in the hadith of the Messenger. When he was learning as a young boy, he heard his sheikh, his teacher was saying that I hope one day someone could dedicate his life to the hadith of the Messenger ﷺ, so he could collect all the authentic ahadith and he put them in one book. So Imam Bukhari, he wasn't thinking maybe one of my colleagues, one of my classmates might do it. He didn't think that. He thought, why not me? Why not me? He didn't think, oh, come on, how can I do that? I'm just one person. He didn't. He thought, why not me? Why should I let others do it? Me, I can be that person that makes a change. I could be that person who makes a difference. I could be that person. He was sincere, honest to Allah. He relied upon Allah, and then Allah made it easy for him. Allah opened the gates of knowledge for him, for Imam Bukhari. See, but he had a vision. All his life, he wanted to collect all the authentic ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's why Sahih al-Bukhari is the most authentic book after the Quran, is Sahih al-Bukhari without a doubt. Without doubt. Because if you look into the criteria, and it's not our topic today, obviously, but if you look in there, because they look at the sanad and the matan, the chain of narrators, the text, the text itself, and they study the people, the narrators of the ahadith, their trustworthiness, their honesty, their piety. They look into so much. Have they met one another? So they look into the chain of narrators, they look into the sanad and into the matan, into the people, the narrator, and into the text itself. Did the Messenger ﷺ narrate it exactly word for word the same as we have it? And he worked so hard all his life to collect the ahadith, the authentic ahadith, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for him. Imam Malik, for example, he got his book called Al-Muwatta, Muwatta of Imam Malik. Same thing, in his time, the time of Imam Malik, he was a ruler called Harun al-Rashid. He was the leader of the Muslims at that time. So Imam Malik, he dedicated his life for knowledge. And his mom, she's the one who took him for knowledge. His mom. She dedicated him. She took him to the scholar and she said, here is my son. I want you to teach him the knowledge. And she made him sit with the big scholars of his time. And then she told Imam Malik one thing that we're talking about today as well. She said to him, خُذْ مِنْ أَدَبِهِ قَبْلَ عِلْمِهِ. Take from the manners of your sheikh, of your teacher, before you take his knowledge. Before you take knowledge from him, take manners and good characteristics from your scholar, from your teacher, before you take knowledge. And then Imam Malik, obviously Harun al-Rashid, the leader of the Muslims at that time, he wanted him to publish his book Muwatta. Imam Malik didn't want to publish it, but Harun al-Rashid, the leader, in a way was trying to force him to publish it. So Imam Malik said, okay, because Harun al-Rashid, he had a point, because he said, what, we want you to benefit the Muslim ummah, the Muslim community. So Imam Malik said, on one condition. On one condition. He said, what is the condition? He said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this book, I'm going to hang it by the Kaaba for 1 year, for all the 4 seasons, for 1 year. So winter, spring, summer, all the 4 seasons. So it will be raining, windy, cloudy, sunny. He said, if the book stays as it is, it doesn't get damaged, nothing happens to it, that means my sincerity is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means my intention is only for the sake of Allah, because Allah will preserve it, Allah will protect it if it is only for His sake. There is no doubt. But if it gets damaged, that means my intention is not 100% for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that book does not deserve to be published. So after 1 year, nothing happened to the book. So that's when Imam Malik decided to publish the book, to make sure that he was sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that his intention is purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at people, but these people, they were following the footsteps of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they were studying the hadith of the Messenger. So from the hadith, from the sunnah, from the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they learned honesty, trustworthiness. See, how to be trustworthy and how to be honest and sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then having a vision, having a mission in your life, having a vision and having long-term, short-term, mid-term goals is very important, because you're going to see this in the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you could see that the focus in Mecca, as I said, building the Muslim personality, the Muslim individual, and then after in Medina, building the Muslim society and the Muslim community. And you could see his vision at the beginning was to inject people with the love of Allah. the love of Allah, as some of the brothers mentioned. Why? Because once a person has the love of Allah, he can sacrifice anything and everything for the sake of Allah. See, he will submit to the orders and the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will be honest to Allah. He will be sincere to Allah. He will be true to Allah. See, because the love of Allah. So he was injecting the Sahaba with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why we will see next week, inshallah, when we start talking about the hijrah, the migration, we will see those Sahabas who left everything behind in Mecca. A lot of them, they were millionaires. They were wealthy people. They had millions and billions, millionaires and billionaires like Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Uthman ibn Affan. Abu Bakr was a millionaire, was a rich person, radiallahu anhu. But he left everything behind in Mecca. Can you imagine today? Just sit down and think, is there any people who are millionaires and billionaires today who would do this? Can you imagine someone starting from scratch, from nothing? Someone who is a millionaire, he's going to migrate somewhere for the sake of Allah and start with nothing. It takes a strong believer to do that. It takes someone who has strong belief in Allah, someone who trusts in Allah, someone who truly believes Allah is Ar-Razzaq, a sustainer, Allah the provider. He doesn't just say it with his mouth, Ya Allah is Ar-Razzaq, sustainer, repeats it. No, deep down in his heart, he understands the meaning of the sustainer, the provider. Allah is Ar-Razzaq. Deep down. This is the people of Iman. These are the people that we're learning from. These are the lessons that we take with us, reliance upon Allah. You rely upon Allah. That's why Allah in the Quran said, وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعَةً. Whoever migrates on this earth for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will find a lot of provision and he will find a lot of ease from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having a mission and being focused is very important, So his focus in life wasn't making money, wasn't becoming rich, wasn't, women, wasn't having power whatsoever. His mission, his vision in life was to preach the deen of Allah, to, call people to the deen of Allah, to establish the religion of Allah, and Allah to be worshipped on this earth. And another lesson that we take, as the uncle said, is patience and perseverance. Look how patient Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was. He was so patient, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We said from his early childhood, he had to be so patient, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The death of he was born as an orphan. His mom died, his grandfather died, and then he's going to go to his uncle Abu Talib, and then he has to work as a shepherd. He had to work hard to earn a living as a young boy. And then he had to work for Khadija radiallahu anha, and then him getting married, having to provide for his family. And in the early stages, that's why we don't have much about Muhammad sallam between the age of 25 to 40 when he got married to Khadija. Why? His focus was building a Muslim family, was focusing on raising his kids, pious daughters. His sons died when they were young, and that was another calamity that he had to be patient. Oh Allah, I'm your servant. I am the best human being who lived on this earth. Oh Allah, I am promoting your religion. I am teaching your religion. Oh Allah, why all this happening to me? Oh Allah, why? You giving me the boys and now you're taking them from me. Oh Allah. But no, because a true believer within those calamities and hardships, he looks at them as gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He looks at it as a gift from Allah. It's not a calamity, it's not a hardship, it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا ابْتَلَاهُ. When Allah loves someone, He will test them. He will give them so many tests in life. That's when Allah shows Allah loves them. Because the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, even the Sahaba and the Tabi'in, the followers of the Sahaba and those who were pious, if 40 days goes by and they're not being tested, they question their iman. They question their belief in Allah. They question their relationship with Allah. They question their sincerity to Allah. If 40 days goes by and they haven't been tested, they haven't been through no calamities, no hardships, no trials, they question their belief. They think, wow, we're not true believers. Our connection with Allah is not true connection. Why? Because if Allah loves someone, He gives them so many tests. They used to question their belief. Look, subhanallah. See, they look at those calamities and hardships as gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to be patient. And in the early stage, between the age of 25 and 40, he was focusing on building a Muslim family, the institution of family, which is the oldest family since the beginning of mankind. The oldest institution since the beginning of mankind is the institution of family. The most important institution is the institution of family. More than any other institution, the institution of family is the most important since the beginning of creation. Family is very important. That's why all the messengers and the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were focusing on their families, all of them. Nuh alayhi salam, even though his wife wasn't a Muslim, one of his sons wasn't Muslim, but he was focusing on the family as well. His other two sons, they were Muslims, but he was focusing on the family. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was making dua to Allah, Rabbi habli min as-salihin. Oh Allah, grant me an offspring who are pious, who are righteous. Why? So that they can worship you, oh Allah. So they can establish your religion, oh Allah. They can follow your commandments and your orders, oh Allah. So family is very important. And the same way, in the life of Muhammad sallam, he was focusing on building his family as well. The same way he was focusing on building the Muslim ummah, the Muslim community, the Muslim individuals, but he was focusing on building his family as well. That's why Fatima radiallahu anha, she is, the leader of women of Jannah, of paradise, radiallahu anha. Why? See, that is the outcome of a pure family. That is the outcome of a Muslim institution, of a strong Muslim family, of a pious Muslim family. Fatima, she's the outcome, radiallahu anha. Zainab, radiallahu anha, was married to her cousin, and we mentioned about Zainab. And Kulthum and Ruqayya, what did Allah give them? Uthman radiallahu anhu. They got married to Uthman radiallahu anhu. See how Allah rewards those true families. Those good Muslim families, Allah rewards them in dunya before the akhirah. So patience was key in the life of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He had to be patient so much, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on his journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and calling to the religion of Allah. Patience and forbearance, so not giving up his faith, not giving up his religion. So the Sahaba, they got injected with patience and forbearance from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They didn't give up. We mentioned Bilal radiallahu anhu. He was a slave. He was tortured. They put a big rock on his stomach just for him not to say Allah is one. But he was saying Ahadun Ahad, Allah is one, Allah is one. After, even the messenger asked him, even the Sahaba asked him after, they said, whoa, how come, oh Bilal, the more you were being punished, the more you were saying Allah is one, Allah is one. He said, the more they were punishing me, the more I was tasting the sweetness of Iman. I was tasting the sweetness of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so I couldn't feel the pain anymore. Subhanallah. You cannot buy this with money, with wealth, with houses, big, tall buildings, lofty buildings. You cannot. This is only the connection with Allah, sincerity with Allah, honesty with Allah, truth, being a truthful person, trustworthy person, sincere, honest with Allah. And look how Allah. These are because Allah telling us all this in the Quran, in the Sunnah, not for us to sit down and think, wow, amazing. No, to learn from it, so Allah can do the same with you. Allah can, because Allah promised the believers. He didn't promise the Sahaba or the Tabi'in or those who are pious. Allah promised the believers. Those who are true believers, those who are sincere to Him, those who are honest to Him, anytime and every time, anywhere and everywhere. So Bilal radiallahu anhu was one of them. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, Allah, they were so patient at the beginning, but they've seen their leader being patient, so that they've been injected with patience and forbearance from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they never give up. They were perseverance, And then the other thing, they had hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, because certain times it was one calamity after the other, one hardship after the other. Certain times after hardship comes ease, but sometimes one calamity after another calamity, then ease will come. But can you imagine one hardship, one calamity after the other? They're human beings, obviously, at the end of the day. They are human beings, but they didn't give up. They had hope in Allah. They never lost hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Never lost hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, they always had that hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether in terms of Allah will bring ease to them, and in terms of Allah can change them. Because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was giving hope to others. How? One of them is Umar. He was giving hope. One of them is a Ta'if who was giving them hope. Yeah, you're abusing me now, you're throwing stones at me, and I'm bleeding, and he's the best of mankind, you know? But he's giving them hope. Allah can change you, O people of Ta'if. Allah can turn you into his servants and into his worshippers, O people of Ta'if. So he was giving them hope. See, giving hope to humanity, to mankind, all of them, giving them hope. So hope was key, because as Muslims, our aqidah, our belief is this. Because we believe Allah upon two things, upon al-khawf and al-raja, fear and hope, both. So we fear the punishment of Allah, obviously, but we have hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a believer. He always between the two, between hope and fear. The fear of Allah, the fear of the punishments of Allah, and hope in the rahmah of Allah, in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a true believer. And then he changed the attitude of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. A lot of them, they were enemies, but then after, they became friends, they became brothers, they became true brothers in Islam. And as we will see after, because we mentioned briefly before about the Aus and Khazraj, the two Arab tribes in Medina who used to fight more than 100 years. But what will bring them together? Islam. They became brothers, true brothers, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have love for one another now. No hatred, no envy, no jealousy. Love, peace, brotherhood. See, tranquility. This is Islam. This is the religion of Islam. This is the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are some of the deeper meanings of our religion that honestly sometimes we don't really look into them. We don't really reflect and ponder upon them. And we think Islam is all, yeah, you have to do salah, go to hajj, do tawaf, umrah, sadaqah, Ramadan, fasting. That's it. That's all Islam. But we don't look at the deeper meanings and the spiritual meanings of our religion. A religion that changes people completely from enemies to, brothers, to bring in love between them. Can you imagine, honestly, more than 100 years people fighting, but because of this religion, because of this Quran, because of this Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will change completely, subhanallah. And then the mercy, so they learned the principle of rahmah. That's why they had rahmah on each other, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have sent you as mercy to mankind. So they took the principle of rahmah, of mercy, from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So they started implementing rahmah in their lives. So then they started to have mercy with one another. When they're dealing with one another, they have rahmah on one another. These are the lessons that we take from the life of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And his modesty. He was down to earth. His modesty, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as a leader. Imagine he was the leader. But when a lot of people who didn't know Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they didn't know who was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when they come into a gathering where Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is sitting there, they have to ask, where is Muhammad? Who is Muhammad out of all of you? Who is Muhammad? They couldn't tell. He did not distinguish himself from others. He didn't dress up like in a specific way that will that will make him unique, that will make him different than others. He didn't say to them like, what, whenever I sit down, bring me some special chair or a special cushion to sit on it. No, he was one of them. So when a stranger will come, he wouldn't even recognize who is Muhammad until he will ask about him. He said, which one of you is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? See, being down to earth and leading by example. This is the attitude of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why when Umar and Abu Bakr, they became the leaders, that's why Umar radiallahu anhu, he used to go to an elderly woman when he was the leader of the Muslims. He used to cook for the lady. He used to do the cleaning and the cooking for the lady, and she doesn't know even that is the leader of the Muslims. That is the leader of the believers. She doesn't even know. Well, he learned it from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Until one day, one of the Sahaba was following him. Because even Abu Bakr used to do that, and Umar followed him. So can you imagine, all of them used to do it. So Abu Bakr was doing it first when he was the leader after the Messenger ﷺ. He used to go to this old lady. He used to do the cooking and the cleaning for the lady and everything. And then Umar was following him one time. So when Abu Bakr left, he went to ask, and the lady was blind. He said, who is this man? The lady doesn't even know that is Abu Bakr. Subhanallah. He said, what does the man come and do here? She said, he comes every day. He does the cooking for me. He does the cleaning for me and everything. Umar started crying. Subhanallah. These are the true leaders of the believers. Not like today. You could see the leaders of today, unfortunately. See? Because when the Islam is not practiced, when there is no true understanding of the religion, things go wrong. But look, the true leaders of Muslims, the true worshippers of Allah, the true servants of Allah, the true followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you know? Look how they were. Abu Bakr, can you imagine the leader of the believers going himself, cooking and cleaning for an elderly woman who is blind? He could have said to one of his servants to go and do it. No, but he goes himself and does it. Umar used to do the same. Radiallahu anhu arda. See, these are the characteristics of a leader. So Muhammad was leading by example. Muhammad with his own family, as Aisha narrating, radiallahu anha, in a hadith, she said that he used to help us around the house with the cooking and the cleaning, and he used to wash his own clothes. He said, but when time for salah, كأننا لا نعرفه ولا يعرفنا. When the time for salah comes, as if we don't know him and he doesn't know us. The only time he forget about them, when salah comes, he runs to do his salah. Now it's time for Allah, connection with Allah. Now I have to connect with Allah. You know, I missed the relationship with Allah. I have to run to do my salah first, and then I can come back. But see, she said in the house, he was a leader, even a husband who was leading by example. So he was helping his wives around the house. Can you imagine? And today, a lot of our, culture and practices of our culture that we bring into the religion, unfortunately, we think, it's something, that shouldn't be happening. He's not a man if he helps his wife around the house. People, they look down on a man, if he helps his wife with the cooking and the cleaning, like he's not a man. And you're a bad wife, you're a bad woman. A lot of the husbands today, if he goes to the kitchen, he wouldn't know where is the knives and the spoons and the forks and the cups. Honestly, they wouldn't, because he never goes to the kitchen. Honestly, I've experienced this my own self. I was with a friend some times ago. I had to babysit his kids because his wife was going to labor, and he called me. So I said, okay, I'll babysit your kids in the house. So then when he came back, they sent her back to the house. They said, you're not due today, come back in a few days. And then he said, I'll ask the wife to make a cup of tea for us. I said, no, come on, she's in pain. How can you ask your wife to make a cup of tea? I said, no, I'm going to have to go. And he's saying, no, but Allah, you have to drink a cup of tea in my house. I said, on one condition, we make the tea. Your wife goes and sit down to relax because she's in pain. Why? How can we sit down and, ask your wife to make a cup of tea for us? We go and make a cup of tea. He said, I don't know, come with me. I said, I'll make the cup of tea. Please go to the kitchen. We went to the kitchen. He doesn't even know where the spoons are. Where is the sugar? I said, where is the spoons? He said, just open the cupboards and look. I don't know. Subhanallah. I said, see, you never come to the kitchen. Subhanallah. See? But in Islam, it shouldn't be like this. Islam, we do not look at women as servants, as slaves. They're not slaves. They are slaves of Allah, yes. Servants of Allah, yes, like we are slaves of Allah and servants of Allah, all of us. But a woman in the house, a wife, she's not a slave, she's not a servant. Yeah, she does the cooking because obviously you split the tasks. The man should go and earn a living and the wife, she's helping in the house. Yes, so you split in the tasks. But you should help. You should help sometimes the wife. And that's how was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because a lot of us today, unfortunately, we learn the culture, but we don't learn Islam. And we think that is Islam. And we think Islam, there is no love, no romance, no this. No, you want to learn about love. Muhammad sallallahu don't go to, I don't want to mention any names that we learned when we were younger in school and stuff, love stories in the, in the books of poetry and this and that, Western poetry that we learn. No, we think those are the true love stories. But no, true love stories and in your religion are true love stories. If you want to be romantic with your wife, go to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You want to be romantic with your husband, go to Aisha and Khadija. As we said before, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to race with Aisha radiallahu anha. He used to have a race with his wife. He is the leader of mankind. Someone you would think he doesn't even have time to drink a cup of tea with his wife, let alone have a race with his wife. He's concerned about the whole ummah, preaching about the deen of Allah, teaching the ummah, this, that. Can you imagine someone leading a leader? So much he has to deal with. So much. But he still has time for his family. He races with Aisha radiallahu anha. And then when she was younger, she bit him. And then later on, a few years later, she put on a bit of weight. So he bit Aisha radiallahu anha. He said, he said, you bit me that time, I beat you now. Fair and square. We're all equal now. They used to have a shower together. a shower together. So Aisha narrates, they used to have a shower together from the same jug, from the same bucket. They used to have shower together, and then they say to each other, Da'li, Da'li, leave for me, leave some water for me, leave some water for me. And that's how they used to do shower together. And she says to him, leave me some water. He says, leave some water for me. Subhanallah, look at the true love. See? But sometimes we do not get educated about this. Just our culture is different. A lot of our cultures are different today. You know, oh, come on, you can't speak about these kind of things. Come on, oh, Da'udu billah, we're Muslims. Why are you saying this? You can't do that. This is Muhammad ﷺ doing this. Subhanallah. Honestly, a lot of that's unfortunately because of the lack of knowledge about the religion. That's the problem. So we shouldn't blame the religion. We shouldn't blame the religion because and sometimes our parents or our forefathers and our grandparents, because the problem is a lot of them, they didn't have enough knowledge about Islam. That's why they've been following culture, not Islam, especially when they deal with their wives and their kids and everything. But we have the opportunity now, see, to learn how to change. So we can change, and we can change the way we look at women, the way we look at our wives, the way we treat our wives, the way we deal with our wives is different. So you learn from Muhammad ﷺ everything, as a leader, as a husband, as a father, as you know, everything you learn about Muhammad ﷺ. If you want, someone came to a school. I said to him, I got 4 wives, and all of them, they live in the same house. You know, I have 4 floors, all of them, they live in the same house. You know, I come, none of them speak. I've never heard any noise, no fighting, nothing. So the Shaykh said to him, you are a tyrant. You are an oppressor. That's why you don't hear nothing from them. That's why there is no complaints. That's why you don't hear them fighting and complaining. Why? He said, Muhammad ﷺ, his wives, sometimes he used to raise their voice with Muhammad ﷺ. So your wives are better than the wives of Muhammad ﷺ, better than the mothers of the believers? He said, because they're scared of you, that's why they rather keep it quiet than speaking up, because the consequences are worse. You are a tyrant, you are an oppressor, you have no mercy in your heart. Someone came to the Messenger ﷺ. He saw Muhammad ﷺ kissing his grandkids, Al-Hassan and Hussein, and playing with the kids in Medina. He used to kiss little kids and play with them, and we see little kids, he used to hug them and kiss them and touch their hair. And then one man came to him, he said, I've got so many kids, I can't remember, 5 or 7. He said, I never kissed any one of them or hugged any one of them. He said, Anta rajulun naza'a Allahu rahmata min qalbik. You are a man, Allah has taken mercy from your heart. This is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are the lessons that we learn from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he was leading by example. He was caring, he was friendly, he was nice to his followers, to his companions radiallahu anhum, and he did not distinguish himself in terms of how he used to dress up, in terms of how he used to eat. And a lot of the times we will come to this in the time of Medina and even in the time of Mecca. Can you imagine Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He used to go out of the house and he used to put stones around his stomach because he was starving, he has nothing to eat. So one time Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he was starving. And can you imagine Abu Bakr, he was a rich person, but he used to spend his money for the sake of Allah all the time. And he had stones around his stomach, so he thought it's only him. And then, no, Umar was first. So Umar thought it was only him going outside looking for food. He got stones around his stomach so he doesn't feel the pain of starvation. And then he met Abu Bakr doing the same. Subhanallah. And then he thought it was only 2 of them. And then they met Muhammad sallallahu the same. 3 of them together. Subhanallah. Look at these people. See, and he used to say to them, sallallahu, he would never feel like, have enough food if there are people starving in his ummah. And Umar used to do the same. He said, even when he was the leader of the Muslims, his stomach used to make so much noises. And he used to say, gharghiri, gharghiri. He says, make those noises, keep on making noises. I will not feed you until all the Muslims are fed. Until there is no Muslim starving. This is the leader. See? He doesn't want to have a palace, have so much food, luxury, extravagant lifestyle, but the other Muslims are starving and dying. No. Can you imagine leader of the Muslims? Subhanallah. Umar radiallahu anhu, he had only 2 pieces of clothes. According to a lot of the narrations, a lot of them used to say 1, but a lot of them says 2. He used to wash it and he used to wait for it to get dry and then he wear it. He doesn't have a big wardrobe, so many clothes, so much clothes. No, it doesn't. So these are the leaders, these are the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The other lesson that we learn is كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنَ, as Aisha radiallahu anha said, when she asked about the character and the manners of Muhammad, she said his character was the Quran. He was a Quran walking on this earth. You could see the Quran implemented in the life of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Again, leading by example. He doesn't just say, oh, the Quran says, Allah said in the Quran, this, that. No, he practices the Quran himself. And the Sahaba used to do the same. You know what the Sahaba used to do? The Sahaba, they used to learn, a lot of them used to learn one ayah at a time. It's not about quantity, but it was about quality. The quality of worship. The quality of understanding the religion. It's not about, I know so much about the religion. Yeah, the knowledge you have there, but you have no understanding of the religion. Or you don't practice the religion. No. They used to memorize one ayah, understand the ayah, learn the meanings of the ayah, practice the ayah, put it into practice, and then they move on to the next ayah. Learn the ayah, memorize it, learn the meanings, learn it properly, understand the ayah, practice the ayah, put it into practice, and then they move to the next one. These are the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, because they learned how to lead by example and how to practice the knowledge that they learned from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the other thing, and one of the major things is the good manners and the good characteristics. As Allah said, as Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the Quran said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ, as this in the hadith, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, I have been sent to perfect the good manners. The akhlaq, to promote good manners and good characteristics. And that's why the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they had good manners and good characteristics, because they've learned all those characteristics from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So number one, brothers and sisters, is honesty. Trustworthiness is very important. Being an honest person, trustworthy person is very important. Patience is key. If we're going through hardships and calamities, remember Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember in the time of Mecca, they went through so many calamities and hardships in Mecca. So many calamities and hardships. But remember Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, leading by example. What you do, whatever you do, lead by example. You're a manager, you're a director, you're a teacher, whatever. Lead by example. You're a father, lead your house. Lead your family, because that institution of family, you are the leader. You are on a boat. You're going on a boat together, and you are the leader of that boat. You need to lead it to safety. You need to lead it to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to lead that boat, because you are the leader, you are the captain. You need to lead it to Jannah, to paradise. It's your responsibility. But if you want those who are with you on that journey, on the boat, to listen to you, to follow the same guidelines, the same principles, the same teachings, you need to be practicing those teachings first. So you have to lead by example. It's very important. And good manners and good characteristics and mercy, as we said, of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So this is obviously, briefly in summary, the life in Mecca, the lessons that we learn from the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca, because we will see the life and the time in Medina is completely different. There will be so many things that are different than the time in Mecca. The life will change completely. The focus will change completely in Medina. But all the time, what I hope that we do all the time is reflect and ponder upon what we learn, reflect and ponder upon the time in Mecca and the time in Medina. So you see the difference. And reflect and ponder upon how the Quran and how Islam changed the lives of people of Arabia who used to live in Jahiliyyah, in darkness before. It's very important if we want to be changed by this Quran, by this Sunnah, by the Seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have to reflect and ponder upon how it changed them as well. So anything that you want to add, brothers, anything that probably you're going to take away with you today, any of the lessons that you think, well, something that, I'm going to take it with me, something that touched you the most in your heart, from today's session, or even the events and the incidents that happened in Mecca.
One of the things you said as well, Mr. Bilal radiallahu anhu, forgive me if I'm wrong, but just off topic, mashallah, people know him as a slave. And even now, you go to a lot of the Arab countries, and sadly, that they look down upon people with dark skin. And I didn't believe this until my own friend said to me they went to Hajj and the way they got treated was appalling. Couldn't believe it. I was like, how is that possible? And they were like, yes. They said they were. And a lot of my friends are fighters, like MMA fighters, boxers, and they had to hold. They said they couldn't believe how bad they got treated. And even the sad thing is that Hazrat Bilal, his mother was a princess. She was captured in a battle, but she was a princess. He was from a lineage of royals. Subhanallah. Allah tests, man. Allah tests. Allah takes away, gives you that man. Subhanallah. Allah made him the first person to do azan. Subhanallah.
And that was a gift from Allah. You see how Bilal was a slave. Look, see, this is what I'm saying. Reflect and ponder. Before Islam, he was a slave. See, look at his status before Islam in Jahil. He was a slave. He had no rights, no status. He had nothing. He was only a slave. But look in Islam, how Islam raised the status of Bilal, and he made him the first person to do the adhan. And the muaddin of who? Of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best human being who lived on this earth. Can you imagine? Look how Islam, elevates the status of those who are sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bilal radiallahu anhu. See the patience of Bilal, his struggles and patience and everything, Allah does reward him for it. And this is how Allah rewards the believers. And not just this is only in dunya, but in the akhirah, as the Messenger ﷺ, he said to him, he said, oh Bilal, he said, tell me what is it that you do? There is something unique about you. You must be doing something unique. Because inni sami'tu daffana alayka fil jannah. I heard the footsteps of your walking in Jannah, O Bilal. What is it that you do? He said to him, every time I make wudu, I pray 2 rak'ahs, O Messenger of Allah. Every time. There was something special about Bilal. Every time he does wudu, not just for the time for salah, anytime he does wudu, he goes and prays 2 rak'ahs. Look, subhanallah. So these are the lessons that we need to, the events that we need to reflect on and ponder upon, so that we take the lessons from them. And then we will remove those shades that block us from seeing the nur of Allah and looking deeply into, the connection with Allah. We will start removing those barriers, and then you will start to see the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how Allah rewards the believers in dunya before the akhirah.
As you said before, being patient is like the teacher was married a couple of times before.
Twice, yeah.
And whoever used to work for her, they used to cheat her.
Yeah.
So when Prophet Muhammad started working for her, and the person used to go with the Prophet, he used to tell her teacher, he's very honest, he doesn't cheat, even when he used to sit down and it was hot, the crowd used to cover him. And because she was patient, and look who she got married to.
Yes.
Patient, and that patient is very, important.
Yes.
It's a big lesson for our women, for the Khadija radiallahu anha. When you went through the story, honestly, it made me fall in love with Khadija radiallahu anha more and more. Her story and how she was before Islam as well, how good she was before Islam, how she helped people before Islam, before she was Muslim. And I found that Allah, like you said, her patience for Allah, and she didn't get married for so many years. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted her with the marriage of the Prophet. It should show that the women these days, that even if you had a bad marriage for the first once or twice, you should still have hope for Allah. Because what our communities do is they have one bad marriage and they'll say, I don't want to get married again. And there's women out there I know now who don't want to get married simply because of experiences what other people have had. And they're ready for marriage, but they don't want to get married because their sister got divorced and their auntie got divorced and this and that. And it's sad because this is the way we lose hope.
Yes.
We should be hopeful. Like you said, Islam is about hope as well, and we need to learn that. We need to express that onto our brothers and sisters as well. When we go home today, we should teach our sisters, our mothers, that this is, learn about Khadija, learn about Aisha. There's so many great blessings and lessons in this.
Yes.
Also, I like the way that you have differentiated two lives between Makkah and Medina. There are some differences, and that was interesting. Like the life in Makkah, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his community was trying to build. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was trying to build individuals, good Muslim individuals, and in Medina they were building a good community, Muslim community. So that was an interesting analysis, and I found I haven't actually thought about these before actually.